Hello, everybody. Good morning. I want to welcome everybody. Can we see Axel if everyone has been entered into the participation room?
Yes, we're starting to see them roll in now.
Excellent. So I'd
Numbers
say
are
we're going to give it
increasing.
another one to 2 minutes to let some folks join, and then we'll begin our presentation today.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're ready to get started. So today we're really excited, and we'd like to welcome all of you, as I have a very esteemed panel here assembled, and we're going to talk about vehicle electrification and the future of electric vehicle. I know there's a lot of questions that are out there, and we have several people that are joining us that may be looking at a career pathway or that may be looking at a career change. We also have a lot of folks that may be joining us that are working in industries looking for talent, looking for a workforce. And today we're going to welcome our guest. And Kaylee, if you could start the presentation. Great. So we're going to be talking about joining the revolution in sustainable energy transportation. Electric vehicle and the charging industry has been around for quite some time. But something that you'll find we're going to talk about today is electric vehicles and electric transportation is just one of many facets of a new world of technology that's emerging on the scene. Kaylee. So if you look at the electric transportation and the really exciting world of renewable energy assets, you have charging stations, you have that are very technology inclined. You also have the world of solar. You have the world of battery energy storage that's emerging. And all of these technologies together are going to need one thing. We're going to need workers. And we're going to need workers not only to install and maintain these assets, but also to do maintenance and to do preventative maintenance. So today I'd like to welcome my guest, our esteemed panel of my associates from SkillFusion. I have joining me today Dave Packard and Enid Jaffe and Rue Phillips, which we're all working together to solve this problem of a workforce issue. So as I'm introducing them, I'd actually like to have them introduce themselves and Kaylee, can you progress the slide, please? Thank you. I'd like for them to introduce themselves. So as we're sitting here on the panel, we have over 100 years of experience, and we always joke about that. But really, electric transportation has been around for some time. So I'd like to turn it over to Rue, who is the president of SkillFusion, and ask him to tell a little bit about himself and how he got started in the industry.
100 years of experience. Oh my gosh, you make me feel old, Elena. Hello, guys, wherever you are, whatever time zone you're on. My name's Rue Phillips. I am the president and co-founder of SkillFusion. Electric vehicles is where I started back in England, actually. When I was a youth, I worked as an electrician for family electrical contracting. And we were doing lead acid battery chargers for the electric milk floats. These were electric, they call them milk floats because they were silent. And we used to fix the chargers, and this was, oh my goodness, in the 70s. Anyway, I kind of left that and got into the music business. And years later, I found myself in California answering an RFP, a request for proposals for a ZEV mandate by a big organization called Edison EV. Fast forward, I was selected to be one of the network service providers, and I installed one of the first public EV chargers for someone that had just bought the EV1, a beautiful car. Went on to install hundreds of charging stations, from design concept to service and maintenance. And from there, I formed and co-formed various entities in the renewable space. Some of them are very large today. EV Connect was one of them that I co-founded. But I got into solar because it was a natural. I noted that people that were driving electric vehicles had solar on their roof. So it was a natural merge for me. Then my company grew, and we had 50 trucks, technicians driving around in vans all over the US, servicing and installing EV charger infrastructure. Yes, so what else can I say? I've formed several companies, successful acquisitions, and very proud to be here today to tell you about the EV industry. Over to you, Dave.
Hi, I'm Dave Packard. I'm Chief Strategy Officer of SkillFusion. I've been in the industry since about not quite as long as Rue, but 1993, I entered the market with a company called EPTI. We were doing fast charging technology. The company was out of Atlanta, but we were working on fast charging the lead acid batteries for the vehicles, as well as doing battery formation and reclamation. Then moved into, the company was moving into EV charging. I went with a company called EVI, which was located in California. Ironically, that company, Enid, was buying my chargers, Rue was installing them. So we kind of got together early on in the market. Later on, with the two partners, I formed Clip Creek, and then subsequently joined ChargePoint, which I believe is still the largest install base of electric vehicle charging stations, at least in the US. And I was VP of Utility Solutions there. And have consulted with a number of startups in the industry and started working with SkillFusion, because all the startups I work with had great technology, but had an incremental impact on the market. And when Rue and Elena approached me about about SkillFusion, it was pretty exciting. It was a way, in my mind, to have a huge impact on a problem that was growing in the industry, and that is the operations and maintenance of the charging stations. Enid.
Thank you. Well, like Dave and Rue, I've been in this industry for more than 30 years. I also started in 1993. I was working for Southern California Edison and in government relations, and was kind of looking for something different to do, and fell into electric transportation and just fell in love with it. And I haven't looked back since. So I then was part of the company that Rue started working for, and Dave started selling chargers too. So as you can see, we obviously like each other. We obviously have a similar passion for this industry, because we all still want to work together. And now our mission is really to go bring the next generation into this field, because you might notice that we're a little on the older side, and we're sort of looking to retire, and but we can't do that until we bring in the next generation. I started my own business when Edison got out of the EV business. General Motors, I was fortunate enough that General Motors approached us and asked if we would start a company to actually service the chargers. And that's what we did. And I had that company for 20 years, and I sold it to another EV company back in 2019. And now I work with SkillFusion. I do consulting. And as you'll see in the blurb under my picture, I do grant writing. And I've been very successful, fortunately, in getting grants. And I think all of us, and this is a point you'll hear over and over, we all have the long view. We've been in this for 30 years. We know it's the right technology. We know it's going to succeed. There were many years early on that we thought, oh man, this will never happen. But now I am absolutely confident that it will happen. And, we helped to get started, and now we need the next generation to take it over. So with that, Elena, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Enid. And I didn't introduce myself before. My name is Elena Farnsworth, and I'm the CEO of SkillFusion. And I'm really proud to be here today because we are going to be talking about the future of electric transportation. I also want to bring to everybody's attention that we do have some chat features that are here. So if anyone has questions, we have people that are monitoring the chat. We may save them till the end, or we may intertwine them into our conversation. We're really going to try to make this more of a conversation. Many of you have been reading headlines, and we've seen a lot of information out there about electric transportation, the EV revolution, both from the automotive side, because we have some folks here from automotive. We have some people here that we know, as I said, are with the infrastructure side. But I'd like to ask Rue to start this question off, and let's talk a little bit about the current state of the EV market, and then I'd like all of you to pitch in about where are we really with this electric transportation and the revolution, Rue?
So, despite the uneasiness that some people are having right now with the change of administration, the manufacturers, the EV car makers, are full speed ahead. Their forecast, their vision, and their mission to electrification stays the same. And as far as where we are right now, we're a little bit behind Europe. I do a lot of traveling and speaking backwards and forwards from the US to Europe, and we are a little bit behind. But we're on a course, we're on a trajectory, and there's no stopping it. As far as sales go, the US sales reached 1.3 million in 2024. That was about 7% more than the year before. 2025, we're expecting a 13% growth year over year. So that's a lot of vehicles. By the end of 24, we expect about 5 million electric vehicles on the road. That's going to be a lot of opportunities when it comes to the infrastructure to support that. Obviously, we have goals for 2030 and 2032, and we'll speak to some of those numbers a little later. But there's one the conversation piece out there why people are kind of afraid to jump over to electrification, and that's the infrastructure. Are there enough chargers? Can I go the distance? My answer to that is the opportunities that brings. There's a problem out there. We don't have enough chargers, but there's an answer that we have the people we have the skill sets. We just got to get them trained and certified. So, yeah, I mean, Dave, can you speak a little bit, you're a charger guy. Speak a little bit more about the importance of EV charging, the infrastructure?
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, there's been a lot of noise about what's going on with the money, the NEVI money that was supposed to come into the market, and whether that gets clawed back or not. I think one of the important things is I work with a lot of utilities, and as they develop their programs to support the market, they have to decide if they want to be fast followers or they want to build it, and hopefully they will come. And I think all the money that the feds were pouring in was build it and they will come philosophy. And you got to love the feds, but they wind up wasting a lot of money and skewing a market. And I think we're in a good position with not so much money coming into the market, and let the market develop around developing the infrastructure. You can see the numbers. The numbers haven't changed, regardless of what the government does. Just how this infrastructure gets deployed may change a bit, and it's going to be following the market. And I think that's a healthy route. When I started in this industry, even in the early 2000s, we thought there'd be you'd charge slowly at home, charge slowly at work, maybe where you shop, and that would be it. And the advent of fast chargers, we're up to, the home charge is 7 kilowatt. And as a matter of perspective, what they're putting in the ground now is a minimum 150 kilowatts. So charging, 20 times faster. And they're talking about going to 350 kilowatts. And while that puts a lot of load on the utilities, it definitely helps the market, where these charging stations start looking a lot more like gas stations. And once we cross that hurdle, the quality of the vehicle, the quality of the drive, the quality of the ride in electric vehicle is so superior, they're going to take over the market. Not to mention the ROI for fleets is far superior with electric vehicles. Enid, you want to talk a little bit about regulatory?
Sure,
Yeah, Enid.
sure, absolutely. So, as I mentioned earlier, after 32 years in this business, I take the long view. And we have survived, and as a business owner, for the last 30 years, we have survived recession, we have survived COVID, we have survived opposition to the ZEV mandate, and yet the industry keeps growing and adding because it is a superior technology. And, we've had our ups and downs with incentives, and yeah, they're great when you have them. And, quite honestly, I know we're spending a lot of time talking about the federal government, but that's because it's what everybody's talking about. But I was just on a call this morning where somebody pointed out there's $100 million a year going into EV charging infrastructure from the state of California alone. And so then there are a whole group of what we call the ZEV states that they don't all have programs of that magnitude, but they do have very large scale programs. And we've also had periods of time, because you can't have chargers, you can't have electric cars without chargers, that the automakers stepped in, and there weren't government incentives, and the automakers formed coalitions to contribute money to the manufacturers and the EVSPs who installed chargers. So yes, there's a role for government. The main role that we worked on in the first 10 years was government policy. I'm still working on government policy on a local level. For example, making sure that local jurisdictions are zoned properly for EV charging, that they're not going to be considered gas stations and therefore relegated to commercial zones, that housing is designed with charging. All those things are happening. And so I think part of what we need to do is look at the bigger picture and put government incentives in the right place, but not overemphasize them. So thank you.
Yes. And as we're moving along, one of the reasons that we spent that much time really defining what the different areas and what the market's looking like, in the next few minutes, we're going to talk about the numbers, because to Dave's point, I like to say there's no industry that the federal government has really made made. So if you're only, thinking that the only funding out there is from the government, we're not, that's wrong. There's a lot of money here, specifically in the US, and a lot of projections that I'd like for the panel to talk about, like how big is this market? Dave, do you want to take a stab, you and Rue, about the projections and what we're looking at here in the US?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Dave, I'll follow you.
All right. Yeah, I mean, we look at the 6.4 billion and it seems like a big number, but when you break it down by the states and by the cities and in different opportunities, it's really not that big. Chasing the vehicles. The utilities alone are putting about $6 billion in. That'll be spread over a few years, but more and more utilities are getting involved in it. The utilities are providing the fuel for this market, so it's very important to them that this gets done right. So, the market's going to continue to grow. And what's exciting is we're starting to see companies like Electrify America develop viable business models to deploy charging stations in the wild, kind of build it and hope they come. And it's working because they know where to put the stations. They know how much to charge. They know how much people will pay, and they can build a business model around that. And that's very exciting, because that's, we have to have the market self-sustainable. And that's the first indication that we're going in that direction. Rue?
Yeah, we talk about growth this year. We said 13% up more sales than the year before, 1.5 million vehicles. Each one of these vehicles is going to require a charger. 70% of those chargers are going to be at home. But the public infrastructure is going to grow massively to support the vehicles that are going to be available. The opportunities for new talent, contractors, entrepreneurs, technicians, electricians is immense. We only have to look at the motion from the manufacturers, the car makers, to see where this is going. And we have to keep up. We've got to keep up with the momentum. Over to you, Elena.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. All of you made excellent points, because this is an opportunity. And as we talk about these big industries, so Dave, you mentioned utilities, and Rue, you mentioned automotive manufacturers. We're also, Enid mentioned earlier, governments, as well as charging station manufacturers. We're also talking about very highly technical assets here. And so this is exciting because there is opportunity. There's opportunity for people that are interested in building a workforce around this to support it, but also for people to get into this new environment of work, because there are people that are retiring and we have new jobs every day. So I wanted to start this next section where we're going to talk about the career landscape by calling on you, Dave, as we talk about the EV charging stations, and let's talk about the installers and the technicians. What are you seeing around about new job opportunities and new roles, specifically with the installer and the technicians in this field?
So it's interesting. It's as we developed in Clipper Creek, when we needed service somewhere, we just called electricians. I mean, there was really no other way around it. And we were hiring somebody very expensive, in a lot of cases, to throw a breaker, which we really didn't need that kind of expertise. And the problem is we're deploying all this infrastructure and we're going into an industry with electricians and technicians that's already strapped for talent. We don't have enough electricians. Even without the EV industry, we don't have enough electricians and technicians to serve the market. And I mean, to serve other industries. And now we're throwing a whole nother industry that has a lot of demands. Additionally, the manufacturers have gone through great strides to make sure that their infrastructure can be serviced by a technician. They don't need an electrician to go out and do a lot of the work that needs to be done on these stations and to keep them operational through time. So as they develop these products, enabling technicians to do the work, we need to find more technicians. And I think that's, a challenge to all of us, is to start attracting, heck, even attracting kids in high school to get into this industry. I think we're seeing society kind of shift away from everyone needs to have a college degree. There's some really good careers out there you can get into without a college degree while learning some of these technologies. I mean, the station installers, certainly an electrician has to be there to wire it, but there's a lot of work of, putting a charging station in the ground that doesn't require an electrician. There's a lot of technical work that gets done around that. The field technicians to serve the units, the charging technicians, the people that know a little bit more about the stations, and can go in and do some of the more complicated servicing, some of the network reliability challenges that face the industry. And just the specialists that are helping design these charging stations, they're helping design where the charging stations are going to go. There's so many fields around this industry that are needing people to get into this field and don't require a 4-year college degree, but require an education and understanding of the marketplace so they can speak the language.
Rue, would you like to add anything to that? Because I know Enid's going to be chomping at the bit in a minute to say something.
Yes, actually, at SkillFusion, we've done a lot of work on the curriculum and looked at where an electrician and a technician come together in the EV service and repair. My point is that you wouldn't send a brain surgeon to put a Band-Aid on little Johnny's knee. If a level 2 charger is in need of cable replacement or some component, as Dave said, it may not need a 4-year trained electrician to do that. What we can do, and we do this at SkillFusion, is we can train and certify skilled talent that maybe are not fully qualified journeyman electricians, but they can take the training. They sometimes will take the training from the EVSE manufacturers, we call them the OEMs. But yeah, there's a lot of work out there between the technician and an electrician.
As we go into the next slide, Enid is going to talk a little bit more specifically about this and about the career landscape to support both what you're saying and Dave. Give us a little insight of what you're
Sure.
seeing, Enid.
Sure. And we've got a lot of statistics on this slide of comes from various studies that have been done. But I also can talk from personal experience of having run a construction business for 20 years and hiring people, and Rue, I'm sure, can second this. Hiring people was my biggest headache. Hiring electricians, hiring project managers, hiring technicians. And I think I tried every business model in the book. And, and when I sold my business, I told the company that purchased it, who was doing very well, I said, I'm going to be here to tell you all the mistakes not to make, because I already made them. You can make your own. But the fact is, the industry has kept growing over that period of time. And, there's not only manufacturing assembly jobs, there's both hardware and software. And if you look at that note about 160,000 jobs, 67 or 2/3% of them, 2/3 of them are electricians or electrical contractors or technicians, maintenance and repair, but 1/3 of them are in other fields in software. There's all the EV chargers, which was not true when I started. They're all on networks now, network operating systems. Those have to be programmed. Those have to talk to the 70 plus models of vehicles that are out on the market today. And so there's a lot of job opportunities, both in workplace, fast chargers, and as was projected, 70 to 80% of drivers charge at home. But there are a whole lot of people that cannot charge at home because they're in multifamily residential situations. And we'll talk a little bit more later about some of the new technology coming along that we would like to get people involved in.
And I do want to tell the participants, this slide, they will be available. And in the last slide, they had some really good numbers, 2 million workplace chargers. And then we were, talking about the 200,000 DC fast chargers. But all of that leads to this next slide, which is what we're here to talk about as well, is the EV charging career landscape, because these are very high paying, high demand jobs that we have right now. And as we begin, to your point, Enid, as we begin to add these new technologies we're going to talk about in a minute, it's going to be even more and more demanding for us to find those qualified individuals. Would you like to talk a little bit about the high-paying jobs and the trade jobs,
Sure.
some of the professional roles?
Yeah. One of the things that's driving this is that, working on EV charging, while not, particularly complicated, it gets more complicated, but it's not that complicated on the basics. But it is a specialized skill, and therefore people pay more for that skill. So people going into this field, they could start out as a technician, or even what we call an EV ambassador, where their job is to ensure customer satisfaction, check the chargers, make sure all the cords are intact, make sure the breakers are on, all those little things that are non-electrical. And then they can decide if they want to move into an electrician role, or if they'd like to move into a software role or a designing role. There are many, many directions in which they can go. And, this is based on data that those people are in fact making more money than their peers in other industries. The other thing is that, as Dave alluded to, we are facing a real crisis in terms of the supply versus demand for electrical workers, and that's both in the technician, trades, construction, electricians themselves, etc. As Dave noted, we have really not emphasized technical and trade education in the last 10 or 20 years. And as a result, many of the people who are in this field are aging out. COVID also, pushed a lot of people to retire. And but a lot of there's an expectation. We have about 800,000 electricians in the US right now, and the expectation is that in the next 10 years we're going to need 700,000 new electricians. That's only the category of electricians. That's basically a 90% replacement of the current workforce. So I'll stop with that. And one more thing I did want to mention, entrepreneurship. All of us are entrepreneurs. Everyone, the four presenters, we have all created multiple companies, God, among us, probably 15 companies, and took advantage of the opportunities in this field. And that's another thing that we really want to help people do, is either grow small companies or start new companies and become entrepreneurs and be able to have all the benefits that brings. So that's another opportunity that we are really looking to at SkillFusion. Elena?
Well, I was going to ask Rue to expand on this a little bit, because I can't think of anybody better to talk a little bit about, you've seen so much in the market, Rue, from your years of experience with working with folks in this field. Do you agree with Enid? We need a lot more people.
Absolutely. I think the studies say we need 80,000 more electricians per year.
Per year?
Per year. To keep up with the growing trend. And that's phenomenal. That's just electricians. When you add technicians to that, and all the ground support, if you like, people that do concrete, civil workers, engineers, CAD designers. Yes, there's so much work that we have to do in order to maintain this. One of my companies that I had, True South Renewables, I said we had 50 trucks eventually out there, and we couldn't get enough. We couldn't hire enough technicians to keep up with the demand of renewable energy. So the opportunities are enormous, guys. They really are.
I couldn't agree more. And so in our next slide, we're going to give you, to Rue and Enid's point, just kind of an overview of, hey, how can you even get started? So this goes for anybody that's looking to get into the field. I'd like to ask Enid at the end of my little conversation here to talk about some of the youth programs that she's involved with, because to her good point earlier, we've got people that are aging out. We need to do two things. One, we need to encourage youth to get into this field. And I know that some of you that are on the webinar today may work with youth. So how could they get started? Well, just a general trajectory to get someone that has little to no experience, or young folks that are looking for a new career. You can get into a career progression that starts with those introductory courses. So like, what is electric transportation? What does it mean? Becoming a certified technician, looking at new expertise and roles in EV, exploring things like apprenticeships. And this is not a one size fits all. So the career landscape and the pathways could vary, but it all starts in a very similar fashion. Start with the introductory level and then work into going to work, apprenticeships or work-based programs, and then progress through being able to then become even more and more engaged in the industry. Now, this can look this way for an infrastructure job, but also automotive. So if you're looking at the automotive side of the electric vehicle and the in-car, in-vehicle technologies, again, the career progression starts with getting an introduction to the industry and then find out where that pathway begins and ends. And so as I mentioned earlier, Enid, would you share a story of some youth program that you're involved with that can show?
Yeah,
examples?
yeah. Actually, I have three programs, and I'll just be brief about it. But one is basically helping young people understand the opportunities. And the beauty of many of the jobs in electric transportation is that they can be done locally. So I started working with a community in San Bernardino, and I think the director of this program is actually on the call with us today. And we wrote a grant to the Air Resources Board, which funded a program for high school students to learn about designing EV charging stations. And the first year, we had a cohort of 10 students, great kids from high schools and one from middle school. We all learned a lot, they all learned a lot. Lena was able to arrange for them to go to the LA Auto Show. They did tours of a lot of different organizations, but it wasn't just opening their eyes to all the various opportunities in this field. It was also teaching them how to be professionals, how to communicate, how to have a discussion with someone at a community event when the person comes up and says, "Oh, I hate EVs." And they had to learn how to deal with that. And so there was a huge amount of growth going on there. And the second year of that program, we went back to the students and we said, what else would you like to do here? What do you want to do more? And they said, we think this CAD stuff's boring. We want to do virtual reality. And we said, oh, good. Fortunately, Elena's very not familiar with that. And so now we're designing a program that uses virtual reality to design charging stations. So, so that's just an example of some of the kinds of work, and we know others are doing similar work. Community colleges are doing a lot of work. But there's just, it's great. It's very rewarding, and we feel like it's one point of light of which we need many more. And I'll save the other examples for later. Okay.
Well, as we're transitioning to the next part of our discussion, it's also exciting for people that are, I think Enid mentioned community colleges and professionals that are looking to have a cross training. So as we talk about some new technologies here, I also want to support some great work that we're doing with entities that are aligning new skill sets to people that are already working in adjacent pathways. So we've created relationships where we're working with some really great innovators to say, how can we take someone that might be in an adjacent field, like in an HVAC capacity, or that are doing new that have technical skills that would be a natural progression into being able to support some of these new technology advancements. And I'm going to turn this over to Dave, because as we're talking about programs like that, where we're taking people from 0 to 60 or from where they're already working as a professional into a new profession by stacking credentials so that they can get that extra skill set, then we're going to be looking at the future technologies, Dave, of even newer things that are coming down the pipe, like something that I know you like to talk about, the bi-directional charging and things of that nature. Will you take it over to talk a little about how that can look? Oh, Dave, you're on mute.
Technological advancements in EVs. If we stop right there, one thing I just want to point out is when Enid and I were in this industry in the 90s, the vehicles were not that great. I mean, there were a lot of challenges. As we mentioned, we were working with lead acid batteries. We were looking, nickel metal hydride was the coming savior of the market. And get out and drive an electric vehicle. If you haven't driven one, they're just phenomenal. The technology is just amazing. And they keep advancing the technology. So automakers, although they seem like a staid industry, they're really on the cutting edge of technology and doing great things. So now I'll take another step. And one of the, unheralded soldiers in this whole thing are utilities. Utilities are just, they're providing this fuel. They're not real good at marketing. They have a monopoly. Their business is a monopoly, so they don't really have to get out and market a lot. But they're doing like a lot of technology advancements in the marketplace. And as you look at a career path, utilities are a great place to work. I've worked alongside utilities for the 30 years I've been in this industry. I've seen a lot of people grow within the industry, within the utility, and also get out of the utility and go on to other companies. And while it's not great for utilities to be the training ground for the whole industry, they're populating the industry with an ecosystem of people that understand the challenges in front of utilities. And utilities are doing a lot in this industry. I mean, they're growing programs to help support EV infrastructure, to be that trusted advisor in putting technology out. And a lot of the startups I've worked with have really been the ones are really designing technology around helping utilities, help the market grow this load, not impact utility rates. In fact, drive the utility rates down, because now we have this new load coming on, and when people charge makes a big difference in the industry. So when we look at some of the standards that are coming out, some of the technology, it's all about controlling the load and using these batteries to help supplement the grid. So one of the technologies is bidirectional charging. Probably a little bit ahead of its time, but when you think about all these batteries around the grid that may be, short supply to get us through a snowstorm or whatever, there's a lot of energy there that can be used to help power us through that. And while the technology has a long way to go, the cost basis has a long way to go, in the end, we'll probably be there where there is bidirectional charging, and where your EV will sit there and it'll charge some and then give up some, and charge some and give up some, especially on some, very local needs. Like you look at the Ford F-150 Lightning, they have bidirectional vehicle to home, where you get that hurricane and you lose power, you can run your house off your EV for a little while. So it's not a matter of the utility taking the power, but just this power being used around your house. You can take that truck out to a workplace and supply all the workers with enough energy without having to run wires or generators out to the site. Some of the other technology that's coming, the North American charging standard, Tesla did a great job on their charging stations. I actually used to supply them back in the early 2000s, 2008, 2010, in that area. And we knew they were developing, new technology, and they came out with a standard for their vehicles, which turns out to be superior to what we have in the marketplace. So you see a lot of vehicles, a lot of automakers jumping on board with Tesla. The plug-in charge, so you don't have to use your phone or use some key fob to enact a charge. You plug it in, the charger knows whose vehicle it is, it knows who to charge, and knows who to inform what's happening in the marketplace. And then a lot of the strategic alliances that are happening in the marketplace. Automakers are teaming up on technology. Automakers are teaming up on battery technology. And that's really where, there's going to be a lot of interest, a lot of technology, a lot of advancements is in the batteries. And there are all kinds of opportunities around batteries. You don't have to be a chemist to work for a battery manufacturer. There's a lot of, bending of metal. There's a lot of packing. There's a lot of different technologies that go around battery manufacturing, and they're going to need, a boatload of employees. So all the technology around the market, as it advances, it really just puts more weight on the need for employees, people that are going to get out and work and have, a little bit initiative to get into something more advanced than where they're probably their initial comfort zone.
I love that.
I'll add to that, if I may.
Yeah.
Talking about automakers getting ahead in the technologies. Stellantis, a giant automaker, was involved in a project in Italy where 700 bidirectional vehicles were connected to the V2G. Exciting to see the automakers get involved on that. Over to you, Elena.
Yes, and that's an excellent point, Rue, and we're going to expand on that here. And then, I'm gonna kind of shorten a few of the other slides, because I see some great questions that have come in, and I want to save 5 to 10 minutes at the end. But I'd like for you to expand on this, because Rue, this really is a global market. You're seeing a lot globally because you do travel a lot, and that's one thing we wanted to point out here. And although we've cited many things in the US today, this is global, right?
Absolutely. I said Europe's a little ahead of us when it comes to electrification and e-mobility. But what I noticed over there recently, There are whole energy systems. The homes are fully integrated. The solar talks to the EV charger, it talks to the battery system, and they all talk to the utility, the grid. So in other words, you plug your car in and the smarts know not to charge that car until the evening. That sounds simple, right? Okay. The battery system knows to charge the batteries in the evening and sell back to the grid during the daytime. And obviously the solar wakes up as soon as the sun comes up. This is important that all these technologies talk together. And what we're seeing, the adoption of smart homes, smart energy systems. I think Enid mentioned smart panels that can look at the load. They can triage which circuits get turned on and off. We're seeing a whole new dimension of technology being integrated into our homes.
I love that in the next slide, a whole new dimension. And it really is, because I think as we painted this picture of of all of these technologies that are starting to work together, that have been working together. But if there's any automakers on the line, or if there's anybody that's ever heard the word interoperability, it sounds like an easy thing, but it's really, really hard. So when we're talking about these the smart mobility efforts, we do a lot of that here in Michigan. It's being done globally. We really do need to keep an eye on the talent. And so as we progress to the next slide, Keely, I want to talk about what this talent looks like, and then how we can actually start to support that through certifications and training. Because today we're talking about EV charging, but as you've heard, we're not really just talking about EV charging and electric transportation. We're talking about multiple segments of the industry coming together to have a better way of powering up and utilizing energy sources for transportation, fuel, and beyond. So Rue, I'm going to pick on you again. I'm sorry. Can you talk a little bit about, I know we've got some educators here on the line because they've had some questions. What are some certifications and trainings that, other than SkillFusion, obviously, that could be useful to get started?
Well, previously on a couple of slides back, we spoke about salaries and pay and, what opportunities there are. Part of the growth in the industry is the requirement for talented, certified, compliant technicians and electricians. What does that mean? Well, you can't just put a tool belt on and call yourself an electrician and go start fixing chargers. There is some training that has to be done for that. SkillFusion, what we've done is identified which areas, which skill sets this person needs this track in order to end up doing this scope of work. There are lots of training curriculums, organizations out there. EVITP is one of them, the Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Training Program. SAE has a certification. ChargePoint, the manufacturer of EV chargers, they have a certification program. SkillFusion, again, we have a wide variety of training, from Fast Track, which is overall fundamentals of the EV industry. I'll tell you a quick story. We recently found out that a big major US auto dealer that was selling new electric vehicles, and their sales team hadn't got a clue about charging infrastructure. They didn't know once that car went out the door, when it came to charging the vehicle, they hadn't got a clue. That's the kind of training that we at SkillFusion have been doing to the fundamentals, to teach people in the industry, learn about this stuff. To technical competencies. Dave, can you speak about this?
Yeah, I think one of the things about people coming into the industry, having a basic knowledge of what some of the terms are and how the industry works is really helpful. You can go and interview for a job, but if you don't know some of the basics, you're going to be probably not at the top of the list. And some of these certifications here are, they don't cost a lot, and they get you really primed to go out and find a job in the industry. And we're also working to look at, employment agencies. Where can we help people get jobs? How can we put people together, the needs together with the people? Coming out of high school, you don't really know where to go, and it's a big world, and you need some help to get there. And I think that's one of the things we're trying to do at SkillFusion is start matching those things up, and also some cross training. Also, Elena mentioned the HVAC. Those people are perfect to help on EV charging stations. They have a healthy fear of electricity. They're behind a disconnect, swapping out big components. That's exactly what we need in the EVSE industry to help, to help service these pieces of equipment.
Yep.
Enid, do you want to add?
Sure. I want to talk a little bit about the soft skills because it's not all technical knowledge. My degree's in sociology, so it's also the soft skills. And I mentioned the fact that that was part of what we were teaching the students that we're working with in San Bernardino. But it's also the message we're getting from employers. They need people who can think on their feet. They need people who can communicate, write emails, know what to say and what not to say. And an example that I'll give is I manage a program called Replace Your Ride for the Air Quality Management District in California. And we give out money to drivers who want to buy a clean vehicle and are willing to dismantle an older vehicle. And they're basically they're case managers, but they're sort of social workers. They're dealing with people. They have to help them figure out which documents to, they need to qualify, get their tax returns, get into a lot of very personal and private information, and they need to have great respect for the privacy of these individuals. So that's a fantastic program and involves totally non-traditional skills.
Yep.
So thanks.
Yeah, and that's a great point. All of it wrapped in together. Kaylee, as we progress to the next slide and then to the next one, please. One of the things that Enid mentioned is, and Rue mentioned, it's fundamentals. It's knowing how to talk about the industry, knowing, as Dave said, what part of the industry you enter into, because if you're already an HVAC professional, like a program that we're working with, you can go into a job quicker than if you were just starting out from high school. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a couple of things that we at SkillFusion are doing to help get people into the industry. And then I'm going to open it up for questions because I realize that we only have 8 minutes left. We have what's called the EDT, and that's a certification program that does get people and do get professionals into a job track. One of the things we find that's super important here is partnering. And I believe it was Dave, or it might have been Rue, that said what's really important is aligning with community colleges or other organizations. And I saw a question about this in the chat earlier, aligning with organization that wants to expand from fundamentals and getting into a track where you can do some hands-on training. We also have a very, very a very entry-level class that we've launched that we're really excited to promote here. And it's called the Fast Track. Now it's a 3-hour online program where, as I mentioned earlier, there is a pathway to getting into this industry. This is a great start for anybody that's just wanting to get their feet wet, to understand if this is really right for them, to employers that are trying to attract talent. This is a really good entry level, what's next kind of fast track. It's exactly what it says. It gives the individuals and people and managers the ability to say, where do I want to go next? And what is the next thing that we can expect to get people into the pipeline for a career? I do want to leave time for questions because I did see a few in the course earlier. And as we're looking to the future of electrification, I think we've given you a lot of information in a very short amount of time. We've given you a 3-hour class in 42 minutes. And not really, I'm just kidding. But thinking about what has been said with the market, with the changes, with everything that we've seen, I'd like for people to, if you're interested in asking a question, to put it in the chat. I saw one earlier that I did want to call out. We have an organization that is in that is a university here in Michigan in Kettering, and they said that it's really great because it's an exciting but challenging opportunity at the same time. So that we have college degrees and offering bachelor's degrees, but to the panel, are there career landscapes that you see for those who want to go on for a full degree program? So how can you get somebody in the pipeline that is in a trade, but that might also want a full degree? Does anybody want to go with that?
Yeah, I could jump in on that. I think,
Sure.
the field needs a lot of engineers, CAD designers, um, you know, software people, people to, there's a whole issue which we really didn't touch on reliability of chargers, analyzing the data, figuring out how we can improve it. So yes, I think there's probably not a course called, bachelor's degree in the science of EV charging, but there are a lot of degrees that will prepare you for a job in that field.
That's excellent. Does anybody else want to chime in? Or I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions. I see.
I think it's just getting involved. I mean, my degrees are in civil and mechanical engineering, and I haven't done that for a long, long time. And it's getting involved, getting some certifications. I think showing people you have the initiative to get into the workforce and go after those jobs and just start growing your career one step at a time.
And
you
I'm
can
a
become
computer scientist. I'm a computer scientist by trade. So as you see, there are a lot of opportunities for many different kinds of both degreed and non-degreed programs.
getting in the industry on a technical as a technician starts letting you see where your interest lies, and you can see the broad area of the market and just start deciding which direction you want to go.
Yes.
Elena,
I see
could we maybe address a couple of people asked about reentry programs?
Yes, I was actually just going to go there. Go
Oh,
for it.
good, because
Tina.
that's something you're the one with experience in that, so I'll let you talk to it.
Well, so yeah, there are opportunities. We've worked with an organization here in Michigan for re-entering citizens that are re-entering the population that may have gone through a tough time in their life, or may be incarcerated in jail programs. There is an ability here because we do have with our EDT program. We have a certification that is around that program. And so there is opportunity for us to be able to take individuals that want to upskill themselves so that when they're re-entering into society, that they have more of a foundation to be able to work. The EDT program is specific for the charging stations, and we do partner with organizations to be able to put a pathway in place so that individuals with high school diploma and beyond can go forward in the trades field. And I believe we are now closing in on 2 minutes left, and I appreciate there may be time for one more. And I see this one, and I'm going to answer it in about 1 minute. There is a question regarding grants. There's someone on the line that said they did have a program in Dallas, but they have closed the department. I will say there has been changes in grants, but there are still opportunities to get grants from, as Enid mentioned earlier, maybe not only the government, but also there are organizational grants. There are grants that we have worked with some folks that got grants from some of the automakers to be able to facilitate a workforce to work on the vehicles. There are also different ways in labor and in different labor markets where there may be the ability to redirect your efforts to do different funding initiatives for educational and workforce development. So we do know
we
that
should mention veterans as well.
And veterans. Yes.
We're doing a lot of work with veterans, so
we have a lot. There are other ways in order to be able to capture funding to be able to engage a new workforce of the future. So With that, I want to thank all of our panelists today and thank you for spending time with us. Thank you all that have come to join us today with your great questions. Our email addresses are here on the screen, and we're happy to stay engaged with all of you and answer any questions. And hopefully we'll see you on future webinars. I want to thank you again.
Right, thank you.
Thanks,
All
everyone.
right.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.